If you look around you, it doesn't take very long to find a lot of broken relationships with spouses, partners, friends, coworkers, neighbors. Yet, if you ask most people, they'll tell you that they long to find love. Today's guest has written a book on this topic. Doug Bender is the chief content writer for the organization I Am Second and the author of I Found Love. He joins us via Skype from Pittsburgh today. Doug, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk.
Absolutely. So tell us a bit about your book, or first of all, your organization, I guess, I Am Second, and also give us a brief overview of what your book is about and who it's written for. I'm really excited to hear about this.
Yeah, well, our organization I Am Second has been around for about 12 years now, telling the stories of people who put Jesus first in their life, and then all the things that change and grow from that moment. And one of the consistent things is relationships. It's amazing what happens when God comes into a person's life. And so this book, I Found Love, is really chronicling some of those stories of people, famous and otherwise, who have found the love of God. And from there, their relationships start to change. Their marriages, their relationship with kids, their friends. And we wrote this because there's a lot of people that are also looking for some changes, some growth in their relationships. So we're excited to bring these stories to people.
Okay, what motivated you to write this book?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is we all have relationships, all sorts of relationships. We have family, and we have romance, and we have friendships. And because of that, we all have a stake in love. We all are looking for something related to love. And I think one of the things pretty much all of us have realized is no matter what relationship we're looking at, it's not quite where we're hoping it would be. We're always seeing things, I wish we could grow in this relationship. And what we wanted to communicate is God is a big part of that. And when God comes into our life, he really does impact those relationships. And so I think that's what really motivates us to put these stories together is we all have relationships, and they can all be improved.
Well, what's really interesting is you share a lot of stories about different people's lives, and some of them are famous people. Have you actually met all of these people, and do you know them?
Yeah, so this has definitely been a team effort. The I'm Second team, collectively, we have all met them and interacted with them. I get to meet with some of them, others get to meet with others. I will say we have interacted with all of them, from Mike Fisher and Carrie Underwood to the Mans from Tyler Perry fame, many others, Sean Lowe from The Bachelor, and in interacting with them, I will tell you, they are as genuine and as real as the rest of us. They just seem to, um, more of their life is on Twitter, so to speak. But they're really interesting people.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you just mentioned Carrie Underwood. So, this book includes the story of former NHL star Mike Fisher and his wife, singer Carrie Underwood, who I love. She had, now, you mentioned in the book that she had several miscarriages. So, can you share a bit about how this impacted their lives? Because this is included in your book.
Yeah, so their story is really fascinating in that, in a lot of ways, their story is one of, man, everything just goes perfect for them, right? Mike always wants to be a hockey player, and he gets to be one for many, many years. Kara Underwood wants to sing, and you know what? She gets to do it. But they both kind of faced this point in their life where they were challenged, and that came when they had a number of miscarriages. And so for them, it was fascinating watching them kind of work through that and realizing that though God certainly has blessed them a lot, He also has them go through some challenging moments. And I found it to be a very humanizing story. You see these perfect people, right? We kind of view them as perfect sometimes, but you know what? They have struggles like the rest of us, and I think that's really important to realize that God has us all to go through a certain number of challenges.
Yeah. Now, did Mike and Carrie share with you any details on how this changed their relationship or their faith?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing they came away with, and this is something we talk about in detail in the book, is the fact that their view of God, I think, best I can say is it changed and it morphed into something where they realized that God isn't just, let's say, He's not just Santa Claus. You say, "Hey, these are the things I want, God. Can you give them to me?" And because sometimes He says yes, and sometimes He says, "You know what? I have a better but also more difficult path for you." And I think that realization was, it really changes the relationship with them and God, because no longer God is no longer this wish list. He is a someone you interact with in the good and the bad, and that's I think that's important for all of us in life.
Absolutely. Your book also mentions Hollywood actor Stephen Baldwin. What can you tell us about his story? I understand that he turned to God after 9/11, but there's a bit more to this story, right?
Yeah, see, 9/11 was certainly a big event for him in kind of reassessing what is life really about. But it started a lot earlier than that. Him and his wife, when they had their first kid, they hired a live-in nanny to kind of help around the house. And his wife is from Brazil, and so they hired somebody from Brazil. The lady came in and informed them relatively early on that she was not there primarily to take care of their house. And they were confused by this because that's what they hired her for. And she informed them that what she was really there for is to introduce them to Jesus, which just blew their mind that she would even say that. But it turned out to be exactly what happened. And that though they were dumbfounded at first, by the end, they were truly, and they still are, uh, believers and followers of Jesus.
That's pretty brazen of her to just come out and say that.
That was exactly their reaction. What do we do with this lady? She
Right.
just told us this. But that's I think the fascinating thing is that God has this tendency to use really ordinary people, like a live-in nanny, to make big impacts. And I think I find it really encouraging that God likes to use those kind of people, because I think most days we all feel kind of um, small and insignificant sometimes. And it's nice to think that, God has big plans for us.
Now, I don't know which one of your authors interviewed Mr. Baldwin, but does he have any regrets about being fully committed to God now and therefore possibly losing some Hollywood roles?
Yeah, it's been quite a few years now, and he really isn't. I have found him to be consistently, and perhaps even growingly excited about Jesus. While it does change perhaps uh, his persona. He's still Stephen Baldwin, and he's still the same personality, though he has found a new grounding in life. And so, no, he really doesn't have that regret. It's been quite a few years now. In fact, he was one of our earlier interviews. I think we interviewed him, going on a decade ago, actually. We've kept up with him over the years, but yeah, it's been a fun journey to watch him on.
That's really interesting. Now, one of the stories in I Found Love is about a violent former neo Nazi, Michael Kent, and his black probation officer, Tiffany Whittier. What kind of a guy was Michael Kent?
Oh man, he is extreme. He was extreme as you can think of it. When Tiffany first walked into his home as his probation officer, there were pictures of Hitler hanging, and he had the tattoos and the lifestyle to go with it. A really a bad dude, so to speak. But and that's the fascinating thing about that story is Tiffany just decided that she was going to respect this person. Though she had, when you think about it, as a black woman approaching a neo Nazi, they had really no reason to respect someone like this. But she had faith that God had created everybody with a worth and value, and treated him with that. And it radically changed him. I still talk to Michael even today, and he still can't stop talking about it, even though this has been years now, that he can't stop talking about how this woman cared enough about him, respected him, though he had no reason for that to happen.
So, what happened exactly? What can you tell us about Tiffany Whittier?
Yeah, so she really just it came from that basic I'm going to love and respect everybody I meet, no matter who they are, which is really the basic teaching of Jesus, who said, love your enemies. And if there was ever an enemy of a black probation officer, it's a neo-Nazi. And though she said, I'm just going to apply this in my work. And so she's not like she's going around being some kind of evangelist pastor person. She was just doing her job. But she translated her faith into this place that as she interacted with Michael, each meeting they had, every time they were handling some uh, violation or probation issue, she would treat him with love and respect. And it slowly just started to really wear away at Michael's dedication to hate, as he would put it. That he found that this love was just such a better life. And there came the point where he just asked her, "Why are you loving me like this?" And the only response she could give was, "Well, because Jesus loved me." And that has forever changed his life. And though he is, I think he's, as always, he's still working through issues. He has come to this place where he has decided that he is going to love instead of hate. And I think that the beauty of that is it shows us the power of love. Love defeats hate every day,
Yeah,
if we're just bold enough to express it.
absolutely. It's interesting that somebody like that could ever, change. So, what is Michael Kent doing now? What's bringing purpose to his life?
Yeah, well, you know what? He's a blue collar worker. He works in a chicken processing a job, and so he's one of those frontline workers, believe it or not. And he is living out this newfound faith for him. He's very young in the faith. He's very young in his walk with God, but he is out there now. He speaks to various groups. Him and Tiffany now travel together and they speak at like I know last year they spoke at MLK Jr.'s annual event that they do, talking about the power of love. Because we see a lot of these issues where we're still dealing with what do you do with extremist thinking and hate and all its various kinds and you can legislate only so much and there comes a point where ultimately the only way you're going to beat hate is to bring love and that's what Tiffany lived out, and that's what Michael is proof of case. And now he's out there preaching the same message.
That's absolutely incredible. I love that story. So, Doug, what kind of feedback are you getting about the book, I Found Love?
Yeah, so it's fascinating as people have been reading it and then reaching out to us, and some of them have been reaching out to me personally, and just what we were hoping for, that they're saying, "Oh man, I was having these issues in my marriage, or I was having issues with my kids, or with my friend, or just with this sense of belonging." And this book, these stories have been inspiring them to view things differently, to view themselves differently in nature of what God has made them to be, has inspired them to really choose love rather than resentment or anger or bitterness or these other things. And so we're seeing that people's lives are actually being changed as they're both seeing the truths that are laid out in this book, but also just seeing the stories. I mean, this isn't a book where here's like the 15 sermons on love everybody needs to hear. It has some of those key points and ideas, but more than anything else, these are the stories of real people, their journeys, all the mess they come with, and none of them are perfectly. Hey, they've got it all together. In fact, each one of them, I've talked to them all. They've all admitted, hey, I'm still working on this stuff, but they've found some hope. They've found some love. And it all started when they first found the love of God, and that's where a lot of that change and a lot of that growth began to come in.
Such interesting stories. So, Doug, what would you say to viewers who are looking to find that lasting, real love where they're accepted just as they are?
Yeah, this world will offer kind of images or pictures of what love is really supposed to be, but we're all not quite the people we are meant to be and want to be and aim to be. So where do you get that perfect example of love? Where do you find that perfect acceptance or sense of belonging? And all I can say is God is the beginning of that. That when we find the love of Jesus, we find the beginning of what true love is, and that is where it all starts. So whatever relationship you're stressing out on or sense of belonging you're looking for, I can tell you this world may give you something, but God is what's going to give you that perfect picture of it. And start there, and you'll see how He changes the rest of your life.
Thanks so much, Doug. Doug Bender is the author of I Found Love. We really appreciate you being here today.
Thanks so much for having me.